What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today in this video we have all of our cars on display and we are going to do a full tour of all of them, and we're gonna kind of go over the history of them, what they are, what's been done to them. So we're gonna go over what they are, what's been done to them. So I've kind of been a Chevy fanboy since I can remember. My very first project car was a 1983 Z28 Camaro, and my first real car that we restored was a 1991 Camaro, and I loved that thing. I miss that thing dearly. If you would have told my 16-year-old self that I would have all these vehicles, I would have I would have never believed you. Never in a million years did I think that I would have all these vehicles. And the coolest thing about all this is I have spent less on all 7 of these vehicles than most people spend on one Corvette. And at the end of this video, one of these vehicles is for sale and is going to be going away. So let me know in the comments which one you think is gonna go away and which one you think should go away. So the vehicle that we have owned the longest by far is Old Blue. This truck is the reason I have my wife. So on our first date, I had my old black Trans Am in this truck, and I remember texting my wife like, so do you want me to take the truck or the Trans Am? And she texted me and she was like, definitely the truck.
I like trucks.
Basically, if you own a truck, you're like 10 times more attractive to my wife. So this old thing's got the 5.3 liter V8. It's got the 4L60. It's 4-wheel drive. I put these Toyota wheels on it. Interior is, it's kind of trashed. It's not bad, but it's not great. I don't really care. Now this truck might be stock, but it has definitely proven its ability to hang. Recently, we took it to the sand dunes and jumped it.
Oh gosh.
And also, we did probably one of the biggest burnouts of my whole life. This is never going to get cleaned off there, so. The next car that came was the old C5 Corvette. So this car is actually what kick-started my YouTube channel. This old girl's got 300,000 miles on it, and when I bought it, I thought it was a story that people would be interested in hearing about, and turns out I was right. About a month later, that video had 50,000 views, and that's what started the whole YouTube journey. So aftermarket mods on this, obviously we've got some racing stripes, this custom fabbed bumper that I did with the rally lights. We have somewhat of a lift going on here. It has Borla exhaust and some intake, and honestly, I freaking love this car. It looks pretty dang good considering it has 300,000 miles on it. And the interior, as far as Corvette interiors goes, it's really not all that bad. A couple of tears in the seats, but really pretty dang good. The 98 C5 has about 350 horsepower from factory with the exhaust and the intake. I don't know what it's pushing, but it's got a 4L65 built trans in it. I've got a ton of videos on getting that stupid trans in there, and it was a pain in the butt, but we freaking did it. Next up came the CTS-V. So this car has been one of the absolute best vehicles. It just checks all the dang boxes. It looks good, it's fast, it's 400 horsepower, it's a 6-speed manual, it's 4 doors, it hauls babies, it looks great. Like, you can't go wrong with it. Like, cart seat fits comfortably in the back. The interior is nice, clean, neat, it's comfortable, it's classy, it's a Cadillac, it's a blast to drive. And honestly, this is a car that just makes sense for everyone to own one. And I think that's part of the reason why they're so hard to find, because nobody wants to sell them once they get them. So the CTS-V one has the LS6 Z06 motor in it, producing 400 horsepower. And honestly, this thing rips pretty hard considering what it is. Next came this hilarious S10 Blazer. So this thing is a built, I think it's a 2.6 V6. It's the tiniest little thing. It's the cutest little thing, but the build on this thing is so clean. It's got a 4-inch lift, shaved fenders. I believe these are 31-inch tires, and it's freaking clean. I picked this up for super cheap. I think this thing produces about 110 horsepower. It's gutless as heck, but I've always wanted an S10 Blazer. The interior on this thing is so freaking cool. The thing that I can't show on the camera, unfortunately, is how it smells. It smells exactly like my old Camaro, just that old 80s and 90s cloth interior that may or may not have been smoked in a couple times. But gosh, it's so cool. I love that red. I've always wanted a red interior. I've always thought that this thing was the coolest thing. And one of the coolest things about this little truck, it has a custom giant hole in the roof, which I think is just absolutely hilarious. We bought this to be kind of the off-road vehicle to haul the babies because it's got a back seat, and be the camp rig. Unfortunately, we have ran into many issues with it, and it kind of is just sitting here. It does technically run, it just pisses every single fluid to like an astronomical amount, to the point where it's just a quick trip down to the gym and you're all out of whatever fluid it's leaking. The next vehicle is the good old Hummer H2. I first knew about this vehicle when Hoovie's Garage actually posted it. So this used to be Hoovie's Garage's old Hummer H2. He got it, he fixed everything wrong with it, and then he sold it to the Burlacker. And then eventually the Burlacker decided that he no longer wanted it, and so he sold it to me for really cheap. And so far, I think this has been one of my favorite vehicles I've ever owned. The Hummer H2 has the 6.0 iron block that everybody wants for their builds, and so it produces, I think, right around 300 horsepower. And this thing's awesome, honestly. This is now currently my daily driver. We haven't had it for a very long amount of time. I absolutely love the Hummer. I was a hater at first, but now I love it. It turns out these things are actually off-road monsters, stock from factory. The interior on these things is, yes, it's the plasticky GM, but it's so fun. And honestly, this is probably some of the comfiest, squishiest, nicest leather I've ever owned on a vehicle. But honestly, I think the interior on these things are so cool. I love these AC vents. Everything's big, bulky, manly.
Everything's big and bulky.
Yeah, no kidding.
But not manly.
So the old Transmero bird has quite the story to it too. So one day I saw this car for sale for like $4,000 and a guy named Peyton Fisher was selling it, and I hit him up and I offered him $500 for it, and he said, heck no, I've got $4,000 into this thing. And I somehow brought up the fact that I was a YouTuber, and it turns out he customized things and gave them away on his YouTube channel, and for some reason he deemed my 3,000 subscriber YouTube channel worthy to give away to. And so he did a video on it and he customized the whole freaking car and he gave it away to me. So this one actually, out of all the vehicles, is probably the fastest car I own. So funny story, about 3 days after owning this car, I put these Z06 wheels on it, and with those Z06 wheels being as wide as they are, this car could actually hook, and it immediately fried the clutch. So that is why it's up on jack stands, and this old T56 has been yanked out of it. So there's the clutch. So this old Camaro is actually Procharged. There's an old turbo Procharger down there, and this thing is actually pretty angry. I was told it produces 500 horsepower. I don't know if those numbers are correct, but I do know that this, compared to the Corvette, this is probably way faster. It feels like it pulls way harder. But the interior on this thing's pretty dang mint. There's only about 160,000 miles on this thing. It's got some pod gauges, no rips in the seats, top comes down. Pretty freaking cool.
Needless to say, I'm pretty happy with it.
What? What do you got? What do you got for me? Wow, that is a mega curly fry. I'm gonna enjoy this tremendously. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad you loved it.
Hi, sweetie. I get the battery.
Open.
Open? You're crazy.
Me? Wasn't that the best curly fry I've ever loved?
That was the best curly fry I've ever had in my entire life. Finally, we are to the newest car in the fleet. So this old C5 was actually abandoned. Very strange story. When I got it, it had just married on the back right there with hearts and fireworks and all the rest in there. It was covered in filth, disgusting on the outside. And even more disgusting on the inside. Oh my gosh, that is disgusting. But we've got this thing looking absolutely fire on the inside now. Everything's nice and clean. We got the freaking vacuum marks. No sign of mold, no sign of rust, no sign of anything. So this thing's looking awesome. We still don't have the key for this thing, however, hence the reason the security system's going off. But no key for this yet, so I have no idea if it even runs. But recently, because we were trying to apply for an abandoned title, I found out that this car has actually been registered roughly 5 months ago. I mean, it is abandoned, and technically anything past 48 hours left somewhere is technically abandoned. And I mean, you've seen the video, it's covered in filth and like it's very obviously abandoned. We had to put one of my spare C6 wheels on it because the wheel over here that was on it was so gone. It had a giant rip under here that is like that wide. But so far, I've had a ton of fun working on this thing. This is the newest one to the fleet. So realistic plans for this car, honestly, we're probably gonna get it running. We're probably gonna wrap the whole thing a different color, and we're probably gonna powder coat the wheels a different color and make it just a nice little cruiser that is kind of my wife's Corvette. So far, I mean, it looks so dang good. The body's straight. So unlimited time and money build for this car. I think I'd love to do a wide body because this car is already so dang low from factory, and so a wide body kit would make it look so cool. But do wheels, tire, wide body, and then probably either a supercharger or a couple of turb skis and call it a day. So unfortunately, this is also an automatic. As far as C5s go, this one's really not all that bad. So really hyped on this one. So our plan with the truck is to absolutely never sell this truck. We probably won't do anything to this. It's just a good old truck that does good old truck things. Recently, we like hauled away an entire apartment in this thing. And so I think everybody just needs a good old truck that does good old truck stuff. Eventually, I might put a lift on it. It would be a small lift, maybe like a 4-inch lift, and get a little bit knobbier tires. If I really got bored and had a lot of money, I might eventually turbo it. So if at some point in the future I turbo this truck, then you'll know I've made it, because I have more money than I know what to do with and more time than I know what to do with. So my realistic plans and goals for this car is I'd love to do a heads and cam build. I want it to be a super aggressive cam. I want it to be and, I'd be shooting for, like, I don't know, probably 500 horsepower. I think that's what the 4L65 transmission that's in it could handle. And then possibly cutting hella fender on both the front and the rear. The only thing keeping me from doing that right now is in the passenger side fender. Right behind the wheel is the main computer for the car, and I don't want to destroy that. But unrealistic, lots of money, lots of time. I would love to do a crazy twin turbo build with this thing and make it just balls to the walls fast, 1,000 horsepower. So so the V is kind of tough because I love the heck out of this car, but I also am not in love with it. I think of all my vehicles, this one, and this one are the vehicles that are most likely to leave. So this one checks all the boxes, tons of fun. But if at any point I had the chance to swap this one out for a V2, I would do that in a heartbeat. So my plans for this one, honestly, is to leave it stock. This is the daily driver. I love the V1, but I think I would love the V2 even more. Unfortunately, my plans for the Blazer are to get rid of it. My wife's sick of looking at it, but it's been really hard for me, I'm not gonna lie. I love this thing. I just love how it looks. We paid 800 bucks for it, and honestly, in my head, even if it stays an $800 piece of lawn ornament, it's freaking worth it, because the build on this thing is just so freaking cool. If I had unlimited time and money, I would 100% LS swap, turbo or supercharger, solid axle swap, and make it just a 4-wheel drive absolute monster where it only weighs, 3,000 pounds, if even. I think this thing would be an absolute ripper. So my plans for the Zombieland Hummer, this thing is probably gonna stay in my possession forever. I freaking love the H2. So realistically, I'm probably gonna do a leveling kit, maybe 3-inch lift on the front, 2-inch lift on the rear. And then these are 34-inch tires, and I'd love to put 37s. I don't think I wanna go much bigger than that, because I want this to be the overlanding camping vehicle. So eventually we are going to put a big old rack up top, possibly a folding tent thing, and I want to do a crazy grill on the front. And on the back we'll put a big spare tire right there. But I'm pretty dang sure that 37 is about as big of a tire as I want to go for this thing. So, but I freaking love the Hummer. It's It needs bigger wheels and tires and stats because right now it looks kind of dinky, which is funny because those are basically 35-inch tires and it makes them look small. So the plan for the Camaro is to keep this thing and build it. This is already basically a race car. Everything is basically already done to it. It's supercharged. It's had NOS on it. Probably put NOS back on it. It doesn't have a cam, so I'd probably cam, possibly heads, and do maybe long tubes because we've short headers on it now. The T56 is known to be able to take up about 700 horsepower. So heads, cam, and all that. Maybe we'll be pushing about 600-700, possibly. The LT1 engine is cheap for all the parts, and so that's kind of the plan for the Camaro. Definitely keep it, make it the fastest car I own realistically, because I just think it's freaking hilarious. When you roll up, you've got freaking flames on the back and a giant red, white, and blue eagle on the hood. Like, you wouldn't expect this thing to be fast. Plus, it's the nastier version of the 4th gen Camaro, and it's got the LT1, so it's slow. But then if this pulls up to a supercharged C6 Corvette and rips on it, like, I just think that would be absolutely hilarious. So realistically, because this is the cheap and most effective car, I want to make this the fastest, quickest car that I have for really not much money at all. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this overview of all the vehicles that we have. I'm really excited as far as YouTube goes for the potential that I have and for the vehicles that I have and what the plans are for the future. I'm very grateful to already have a subscriber base, and I'm grateful for anytime anyone watches my videos. I just feel like some dumb redneck kid, and so for anybody to follow me and enjoy my content, it really makes my day. But guys, if you want to see more videos, there's going to be 2 videos right here. This one's going to be a video especially just for you. This video is going to be my latest video. Don't forget, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.